Hello, Happier Lives Tribe. I'm so excited to be bringing you Law of Attraction and book coach Vicki Gold today. So she'll be joining us any moment. In the meantime, please say hello. Leave us some information in the comments. Ask questions as we go through today. And let's see, what am I curious about knowing today? How about you hit us in the comments with a number 1 if you are an entrepreneur who would like to write a book about your story. And hit us with a number 2 if you're not sure what parts of your story to share, what parts not to share, stuff like that. So Vicki should be joining us any moment. Let's just make sure we're allowing her to do that. Here we go. Here comes Vicki. There she is. Hi, Vicki.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. I'm so excited to have you here today and introduce you to the Happier Lives Tribe, which is a community that I've started. It's full of ambitious entrepreneurs who recognize that it's the personal development part of really getting to a place where they can expand their professional impact and success. And I know I've personally worked with you and you helped me share my story. So Rita, hello, thanks for joining us. And I'm so excited for you to bring your special perspective about how to share your story with the world in a way that can help people really, first of all, get out of their own way about being so scared to share their story, and then also how that can impact their business. And I know my approach when I work with people, I'm really excited when they start connecting the dots about how powerful these relationships are. And so I love your approach about the story building. My approach when I work with
I heard you twice there.
But yes, I know I heard it in the background a little bit, but I'm so excited for you to share with our listeners today about how it's really that relationship building process when we're looking to connect with new clients or when we're really trying to connect with people in our lives. And I'm super excited about that. But I also would love to start with you sharing with people. I know I've been lucky enough to be friends and colleagues with you for, what are we, over 3 years now that we've been going on? Yeah, so I'd love to just have you share a little bit about yourself with the Happier Lives Tribe that's watching today, and you know how powerful our friendship has been. We started in a coaching group together, and this relationship that we've built and really connecting on shared parts of our story really has been so beautiful over the past few years. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to share this out to my group, but I'm listening. I'm here with you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate the ability to come and talk and share what I do with the people who follow you. And I see people that know me that are jumping on as well. Hi, everybody. I saw Chuck and Rita and Catherine and Jacqueline. Thanks for being here, guys. We're going to be talking a little bit about the whole storytelling, book writing thing, but a little background for those who don't know me. So some may know me as a lady who helps people to write best-selling books. I have about 100 best-selling authors now in the last couple of years. But what people don't really realize a lot of times is that it wasn't always easy. It wasn't always easy sharing my story. And there were stories that I kept hidden away for a while. And the most important one was the one that I was trying to outrun. So I was trying to outrun this story. I thought that if I just kept it hidden, if I didn't talk about it, if I whatever, that like all the things that happened really maybe didn't happen, or maybe I wouldn't have to deal with it, or that the things that would repeat in my head wouldn't happen anymore. And what happened was back in 1989, I was a senior in high school. And it was one of those nights where my mom was mad at me, my buffer was gone, my dad was out of town, and this was when things always got really rocky. And we had one of our normal fights, and which turned into a little bit of a kitchen brawl that we had on the floor. And it was one of those days where you're like, she's like yanking my hair and I'm making hers back, and she's got me in, you know, this headlock. And every once in a while I get her in a headlock. And eventually I was just like, this is enough. I ran up to my room. I slammed the door, barricaded it with my chair, and I started just furiously packing my backpack. Like I had no clue what I was doing. It was just happening. And for some reason, there was this bungee cord in my closet. And to this day, I'm like, why the heck did I have a bungee cord in my closet? I don't know. But I took and I hooked it on the side of my canopy. So I had a big 4-poster canopy bed, and I tied my sheets to it. And then I went and I strung it out the window. And I got to tell you this, it's not like the movies. You don't like gracefully, like a spy, go down the brick building going doink, doink, doink. You just kind of like with the bungee cord, because it's stretchy and everything, I just kind of went flunk on the ground. I mean, it slowed it down a little bit and I was perfectly okay. I think really anything that would have happened, I wouldn't have felt it anyway that day. And I ran to this gas station out in the distance. There was a light, and I went there and called a friend of mine, and he picked me up, and I finished out the rest of my high school with other friends. Finally got an apartment, went to U of M and everything, and did all those things. And through that process, and through, you know, now I'm 47 years old. So this was a long time ago, right? A lot of healing has happened, a lot of forgiveness, a lot of understanding. I understand my mom so much more these days. I love her. I don't fault her for how she tried to raise us and what she thought was the best for us. And I know, going through coaching, you know, and trying to understand and reflect back on it, that she did the best that she could with what she had at that time. But what I figured out from that whole process was you can't outrun the words that go through your head. You take them with you. If you allow them to speak over and over and over again. I couldn't outrun what she had said to me. I couldn't outrun, you're not enough, you're not going to amount to anything, I wish I didn't have you, laid out on the floor and die. I couldn't outrun those things until I changed the thoughts that were going through my mind. And what I realized with that is that everybody has a story, everybody has a journey, and we can all become those wounded change makers for the world. We all have a reason for why we went through things. There are many days that, you know, and I'm sure you have, and other people who are listening have had those days where you're like, oh gosh, why me? Why is this happening? I don't understand. And sometimes the reason is purely because you were meant to go through those things, because that was orchestrated for you with your personality, with all the things that line up, so that you could go out and help somebody else. So most of my authors, when they tell me, you know, I want to write this book, why do you want to write the book? Because I want to help people, because I want to make a difference, because I want what I went through to have meant something. And you can create meaning for those things that you've gone through by becoming that, you know, healed, wounded change maker, and create positive change in the world and sharing that story. Hey, Julia, David, and Deanna. Oh gosh, look at everybody who's jumping on. Hi, guys.
I know, I love this. Thank you for joining us, everyone. And I really resonate with what you just said. And I want to make sure that I share one thing that you said to me a while back, and I know it's something you say on a regular basis, is how the most transformational book you'll ever read is the one that you write. And I know so much of, as I went through writing my book, with you helping me through that process. First of all, thank goodness I had you helping me through that process, because it was really scary to think about, you know, one of those things, like you think you're going to hit publish on your book and like the whole world is going to read it. Unfortunately, It's not actually that easy to get people to read your book, which is something I know you help people with, is getting their book into the right hands so that they can help and they can have an impact. As far as that whole process though, even to this day, when people tell me that they've read my book, which of course went bestseller and all that stuff, I still have this little like, it's like they read my diary, because at that point in my journey, what I was sharing was the things that made me who I am, the things that have given me such an unshakable desire to impact the world. And that's what this Happier Lives page is all about, is that everyone deserves to live their version of happy. And it doesn't, you know, there's enough happiness to go around. Me helping you be a little more happy doesn't take away from my own happiness. If anything, it adds to it. And by sharing the pieces, I shared some very vulnerable pieces of my past that again have influenced who I am and why I'm such a strong leader, and why I can take a stand for the things I take a stand, and why I can support and help other people. It didn't make it less scary to share. And I'm so glad that I did it anyway, though, that I didn't let being scared stop me, because it really was a part of my transformation. I almost feel like writing that book actually helped me close a chapter on a version of myself that I needed to let go of in order to step into a more powerful and more successful version of me. So for those of you that are watching that haven't considered writing a book, it doesn't necessarily have to be, you're allowed to have your reasons for writing it. And whether you expect it to happen or not, you are going to become a different person going through the process of getting to know your story and being willing to share that. The other side of this is that even just looking at your story, it's something that allows us to connect with other people, right? Like what's most personal is also most universal. So those things that you think only you went through or that nobody else will understand, when you have the courage to step up and share your story, it actually allows the people that first of all, you get to realize you're not alone, and you get to inspire and help other people because they get to hear from you that they're not alone. And that being said, I'm super excited for Vicki to share. She's agreed to bring 3 tips to the table today on how we can share our story in a way that fast tracks building trust with people in our lives and in our business that it feels important to be connected to and connected with. And so, Vicki, I'd love for you to jump into, actually, maybe before we share the tips, what do you think? Should we talk to our viewers today about what if they're scared, or what if they have shame around their story? I know that's something that I kind of just touched on that I went through, but again, I'm sharing that piece of my story with all of you, and I know I'm not alone in that. That's something that you had really helped me with. So
well, that's
can you
part of
speak to that?
something that's going to be in the 3 tips, so I can start with that one. That can be the first
Oh,
one.
okay.
How to share your story to speed up the trust building process. One of it is to get over yourself. Like, seriously, you have to get over yourself. Now, Bethany, you were number 5. Like, I don't know if you realize this. You were my 5th best-selling author if I include me. So, like, aside from me, you were number 4.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I now have 92. And through all those authors, nothing has changed. Everybody has these fears of judgment, fears of, not being accepted, what's going to happen if. And if you're scared about it, I think most of us as coaches and online entrepreneurs, our biggest desire is to help somebody, right? Most people will say, if I can just help one person. And then I'm like, all right, like our coach used to say, take a stand for the and, right? You can say that and also want to help millions, and touch so many lives that you can make that ripple effect as well. So when you're thinking about this scaredy cat thing, it's easier sometimes to think about the impact that you're going to have on the world, on other people, and make it more about them than it is about you. Because when we're scared, it's all about us, right? It's about our fears, about our judgment, about not being enough. We might think we need more credentials, more education, more whatever it is, right? But when you really think about the people that you could have an effect on, and people who are struggling like you once did, because that's generally what people are going to pay you for, is the solution to whatever struggle you were in that you got yourself out of. And sometimes I like to share with people, imagine this room. You've written your book, it's out, it's a bestseller, it's being handed out all over the place. You have a consistent marketing plan to get it out there, right? And you're in this auditorium and there's room full of people. And they're one by one, they're coming up to you and they're saying, oh my gosh, you changed my life. Oh my gosh, I was at my last straw, you know, my last glimmer of hope. And you came into my life, you shared your story, you were so real, you were so vulnerable, you were such an impactful part of my life turning around, of getting a solution, of getting out of some sort of pain, relationship pain, you know, money pain, whatever it is, that it, you know, all these people that just keep coming up to you. And you have this huge auditorium, and you know, I imagine the whole strobe lights with the purple and, you know, all that stuff going on. And they're one by one, just huge hordes of them coming up and down. How does that feel? Right? If you were to share your story, that's what's going to happen. Now, on the flip side, sometimes we let the scaredness keep us from doing something because we don't feel the pain. So on the flip side, what if that same auditorium with all those strobe lights, with all that seating, was empty? And it was empty because you decided that being comfortable, putting a shell around yourself, that was more important than the story that you knew. Because most authors have like this little nudge, right? We have those nudges that sometimes we're like, nope, you're not talking to me. And then it comes again, well, you're not talking to me. But what if that empty room was all because you pushed that nudging away? You pushed that thing away that you knew you were supposed to share, that you're being called to share. That room is now empty. And all those people that are outside the room can't get in. They don't hear your story. They don't know what's going on. I almost see it as like all these like zombie people like bumping into each other and stuff. You know, they're just like going around going, I don't know what to do. And they're
Well, and
sad. They're
yeah, I love that analogy too, because I think there's a lot of one thing that is really key in how I support people in creating transformation in their life is that it starts with taking responsibility for ourselves. And when we look at that, you know, and not in like a way of shaming yourself or making yourself wrong, but just in an awareness way, you can be very kind and loving towards yourself as you go through this process. But asking the more difficult questions, like, you know, when you consider that empty room in that analogy that you just shared, how is it serving you to keep your story to yourself? And when you look at, well, I don't have to get uncomfortable, you know, I might not hear no, I won't have people not like my book, you know, I won't feel like I'm not good enough. All those things you can, when you can look at them and then you say, okay, and so if no one shows up to read your book, what did you really lose here? Like, what is actually, if that worst case scenario came true, what did you actually lose? Nothing. There's nobody listening to your story right now. So if you go tell it and nobody listens, you didn't lose anything. But what could you possibly gain from that? You might, something like gaining the confidence, gaining practice in telling your story, learning who cares about your story and who doesn't. Maybe if it's an empty room, maybe you need to go try telling your story in another room. And that's okay. And it doesn't, and you don't have to do it alone. You know, but if you are alone in that auditorium, it's really, you know, it boils down to how is that serving you to stay small and to stay quiet and to not share what could have a great impact on people. So I think that's really powerful.
If your purpose in life is to be out there helping others, it's not just about how is that serving you, but how is that serving your mission and your purpose and the other people that you're meant to touch. Because I truly believe that there are certain people that come into our lives that it's not by accident. You know, so if those people come into your life and you kind of like almost like ignore them in a sense because you're not really sharing and you're not being that person who's courageous to share that story, then all of that is not happening. You know, they're not getting what they need. So it's not just how's it serving you, but it's not serving the other people that really do seriously need you.
Exactly.
And you know, there's that whole thing too, not to go off on a tangent, but like we all do similar things in some ways, right? There are other book coaches out there. There are other success coaches out there. There are other, you know, but what is the deciding factor? The deciding factor is how much of a connection that you have and the story that you have and the vulnerability and all that. Somebody may not pick me because they want somebody who's, I don't know, not as goofy. I don't know. You know, they might pick somebody else because we just don't connect. We don't click, and that's perfectly fine. But there are people out there who really need you because you are the one, like the one that they are supposed to click with. So that actually leads into the second tip. So the first tip about how to share your story to speed up the trust is you got to get over yourself and get over the scared, the judgment, and all those things. The second thing is a little more about the how, about how vulnerable you need to be. Like, and it ties with the first one. If you're not scared in even just a little way to tell your story, it's too safe. It's too comfortable. And not that that's not the story, but it might be that you're not telling enough of the story or not going deep enough into
What's that?
I
love that expression. It's reminding me of, as you're sharing this, that goals should scare you a little and excite you a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you know. So you're saying to use that as a barometer, like if we're not a little bit scared to put this out there, that we're not going deep enough or we're not being vulnerable enough. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah, exactly. You know, like if you're in your head questioning, gosh, should I share that? Maybe they don't really want to hear, like you are rationalizing that people don't want to hear that part or that you need to gloss over that part. That's probably the part that they really, really need to hear about. You know, when I talk about the story of my Lyme disease, I talk about how I really seriously contemplated taking my life. And a lot of people, sadly, you know, can relate to that. Mm-hmm. But that's also where the connection comes in, where they understand and they know that I understand them, they understand me. We've been at that rock bottom place before, without hope, feeling like, you know, there really was no reason to be here, that everybody would be better off without us, that, you know, all those types of things, which are not true, but creates a trust and a safety. And when you are vulnerable enough, that creates a safe space for somebody else to be vulnerable with you as well. It's kind of like a, well, you have to go first.
Yeah. Well, and that's especially, I totally relate to that. And even I think I'd said it earlier on today's broadcast about how when people come up to me to this day, I still, and they're like, oh my gosh, I read your book and it, you know, again, it changed my life. It did this, it did that. And my my initial reaction is still a little bit like, it's like they read my diary, because I shared the things that I had been so scared to share with the world, because I wanted to pretend I had it all together. I wanted to pretend that, you know, I hadn't struggled as hard as I had struggled, or that I hadn't been through the painful situations I'd been through. And, you know, ultimately for me, I've lived, like, for those of you that are wondering, like, if the steps that Vicki's sharing is true, I've lived this process and I know how powerful it is when you know, step one, get over yourself, stop taking yourself so seriously, stop letting yourself live in the fear. Step two, make sure you're sharing vulnerably enough to actually connect with your people, because they need that. And ultimately, it's really empowering as it comes back to you. That's not why I shared, but it's this unexpected bonus of my willingness to get vulnerable in my book. It really does, it continues to come back to me in a really powerful way. And it's not just about how you share in your book, but you'll notice Vicki's doing a really good job of leading by example in the stories that she's sharing throughout this broadcast about herself, and how those of you that are watching are probably able to connect that much more quickly with her if you connect with her story. And if you don't, you're still like, wow, so you're witnessing and you're seeing, and it's not about it's not an ulterior motive about forcing somebody to connect with you. It's about allowing the right people to trust and connect with you, right? And oh, Elena's here and Samantha's here. Hello, ladies. Lovely to see you. So yes, step one and step two are fabulous. What's step three? I'm like dying to know.
Step three is you have to be willing to repeat yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I used to tell my daughter, because she is a singer, she was like, I don't want to be a singer, Mom, because I have to sing the same song over and over and over again. Okay. Well,
Thank you.
this is what we do. You know, whether you get on stage or like the introduction that I gave you here is somewhat of a standard introduction. I have two main stories that I tell. The one that I shared in the beginning and the one about Lyme, and then I have minor stories. We all have major stories and minor stories. And we're going to repeat them. And guess what? The people who love you love hearing it again. It's just like your favorite song that you have on the radio. It comes on and we love jamming to it. And it doesn't matter if it was from the 1980s, we're still jamming to it now. And even if that singer was a one-hit wonder and they're tired of singing it, we love listening to it. We connect with it. And every time that song comes on, it either brings memories, it has a connect, like something happens, right? So when you are telling your story or stories, because like I said, there's major stories and minor stories, quit being afraid that you're going to bore somebody or that they're not going to want to listen to it again. There are certain people that when I listen to their podcasts or listen, like when they're a guest on another podcast or when they're on stage, like you can't just come up with another story. That is your story. That's your main story. You're going to tell it over and over again. And as you tell that story over again, remember that people have to hear things like, I don't know, 7, 10 times. I think they actually increase that to like 20 because we're so
I think
like
so. I think
short
it's over
attention
20
span
times
now.
now. Yeah,
Yeah,
especially
because
and the other side of it too is we get better at telling our stories when we tell them more
yes,
often. We can also watch people's reactions and gauge, oh, okay, people, their eyes glazed over at this part because maybe I could skip that part. Is that really essential?
right.
And it's about really taking enough care and crafting our
Mhm,
story in order to create the impact that the world
right.
deserves from us, because each of you watching has a story, and whether you're scared to share it or you feel like you don't know what part of it matters or doesn't matter, the reality is it's by sharing your story, by going through the step one, get over yourself and don't live in that, don't let fear run the show. Step two, I forget what step two was. What was it?
It was about vulnerability,
Being vulnerable. And then step three, give it to me,
repeating
Vicki.
yourself,
Repeating
repeating
yourself.
yourself. Hmm.
As you follow those steps, you'll it's I think it's a sign of respect for your audience, and it's a sign of um, honoring your own story to get good at telling it, so that
Yep.
honestly, so that it can be more entertaining, so that you can be more comfortable sharing it, so that more people will listen. All of those things, if it's on your heart to go have an impact in the world, to help bring more love and create happier lives in this world by sharing what it is you do. I mean, Vicki's
Hmm.
she's in her magic zone over there. I'm in my magic zone when I'm introducing people to the next level version of themselves and supporting them in actually becoming that. Um,
Yeah.
what's your magic zone? What is it that you do? And actually, feel free to share that in the comments, not as like a, promo, come buy my stuff thing, but just to honor what is it that you do? What's your gift, and what's the story that matters to that? We'd love to have a conversation and start hearing how these steps are helping you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And, one of the people that follows me on a regular basis, he actually said to me, wow, every time you tell your story, I learn something new about you.
Mm-hmm.
And that just goes to show that, it's kind of like when you read a book, right? You're a certain person when you read that book. 2 years later, when you read that same book that you felt was impactful to you, you read it again because you liked it or whatever, you'll
Yep.
get different things out of it. So
Yes.
trust me when I say that as you share your story, people who have heard it before will get other things out of it. Um, so many people have just been like, wow, that really hit me here, or that really hit me there. And it wasn't that I was focused on that any more or less than the last time. It's about them and where they are at that point that you come into their lives and share whatever it is. Um, the whole storytelling thing, I cannot talk enough about. You got to share your story. You have to share it all the time. Everything you do is a story, like your content, your emails, your social media, your videos. When you insert the story, you insert the person. People are bored. Like they do not want just the 3 tips. Like if I came on here and I said, here are the 3 tips, like that's really dreadfully boring. Like let's stab our eyes with needles, they really want to be entertained these days, especially when you're on social media or when you're on stage. And like you said, as you tell your story over and over again, you get better at it. And then when situations arise where you can share your story in front of somebody, let's say, purely by accident, then you're prepared. You've said it so many times that it just rolls off and you know exactly what to say. That happened to me at Detroit Startup Week. In June, the speaker did not show up for the room that I was in. I looked at the lady who was in charge, because like there were all these breakout workshops, right? I just looked at her and I said, well, if they aren't coming, because she just announced, right? If they aren't coming, I'm happy to do a session about, actually it was about how to craft your story, which was kind of funny. But I got up there and I shared my story. Then I shared 4 steps to like what needs to be the components of your story. And they were all like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just did that. But it was because I had shared my story so many times that it was no big deal to get in front of them anymore. There was no, oh, I'm scared because of how it might be received. I already knew how it was going to be received by the past and how things had happened back then. It grows your confidence. And I see people writing books as well where they've shared these really deep things. Like one of my authors, she wrote a book called Abuse to Abundance, and the day beforehand she was like, what is my mother going to think? What are my best friends going to think? Like I haven't shared all this stuff. And like it was very, very, very personal. But afterwards, all of a sudden, I saw her just rise higher and higher and higher. Her confidence went up. What she put out on social media was just so awesome. Her retreat started getting booked up. She raised her prices. Like all these things happened, all purely because she got behind that story. She got her confidence out from sharing it in a vulnerable way. And she fed off the positive feedback that she was getting. Now, I've told you I've had some crappy feedback before on a couple of my books. Trolls, can we say trolls? But anyways, the one, it almost kept me from writing another book because it was on my first book. And it was like, this is just the rambling of somebody who can't get her thoughts together. And I was like, oh, and I almost let that one comment outweigh all the other positive comments that I was getting from, oh my gosh, this is changing my life. Oh, now I know exactly what to do next. Just all those things. Same thing with the last one that I just got like recently, literally last week. The guy was like, this is a bunch of junk. And on the very same day that I got an email from somebody in my tribe saying, I just love you because you're not a greedy person. Where this other one was like, she has this program and she wants you to buy this well, yeah, I kind of do want you to buy my program. I do, because it's good for you. It's not doing anything for me sitting there. Like I already know how to get to bestseller, but it's going to do you good and you're following and you're spreading your news and your story. Like it's going to do you good. Of course. Yeah. But for some people who are like, I don't want it, they're offended if you make an offer, so all that to say, don't let the comments of a few negative people outweigh the positive things that you're doing in the world. Because the fact of the matter is, when you share your story, some people are going to like it and some people are going to hate it.
Yeah, and that goes even back to step 1 of getting over ourselves and having the courage to put our story out there. And ultimately, let's see. Thank you, Samantha, and author Jacqueline. She says she likes to motivate parents of children with disabilities to be an advocate for their child. So that's such a needed thing. That's so powerful. And if you don't get out there and share your story in a way that these parents can connect with you, how many people are not going to be advocating for their children with disabilities that you could possibly help? And yes, there might be people that are like, don't get it, and that's okay, especially if we go through that first step of getting over ourselves and being willing, and this is where I think the passion and really following what's on our heart is so important. It's anybody in my world that I connect with, and again, Vicki and I go back a couple years here. It's we're not greedy. We're not, yes, we're successful and we create a high level of impact in our clients' lives. And we do charge money for a lot of our services, but we're also sharing our afternoon for free with you right here. We've taken the time to put our stories out in the world. We continue to do so regularly. Um, and all of these things that we do purely because we want to create more of an impact. And it's, I hope that each of you watching is inspired by, maybe even a little bit nervous about the idea of sharing your story, but that you're inspired to not let a little bit of fear hold you back, because there are the the number of people that need to hear your story and need you to step into being the best version of yourself. Is there's a massive need for it in the world. There's like how many billions of people, and we're going to let being scared of what one or two people think maybe hold us back. Listen, right. I get it. Vicki gets it. You're not alone in having those thoughts, but just don't let fear end up running the show. So I'd encourage you, and by the way, for those of you that haven't liked the Happier Lives page, I invite you to, stay connected, like the page, so that we can continue bringing you more content like this. And Vicki, what's the best way? I'm going to pop the link in there also, because I know sometimes there is so much noise out there. And I do a thing to just pop it in your email inbox, and so you can be like, oh, catch all the replays. I'll pop that link in, and Vicki, if you want to pop in your link, so people can stay connected with you.
I just popped it in the wrong spot because I popped it in as a comment to Rita, but I'll pop it in again. And it's going in the same spot, so I don't know. Sorry, Rita.
Nope, I see it on there.
As a final thing that I want to say to everybody, definitely connect with Bethany. I would love to connect with you too. I have, if you just type in my name, Vicki Gould, it'll come up with my Facebook page. And then I have a group called Write Your Biz Book, using your story wheel, because we talk about how it goes around in a whole entire thing, and it's like omnipresence and stuff like that. But one of the things I really, really hope that you get from what we're talking about today is about becoming that confident person, about becoming that better version of yourself. Because I truly don't believe that we were put on this earth to be mediocre, to just kind of slide by and just kind of whatever. There was a time in my life that I thought that that was all that was left. When I was very sick and it was like 3.5 years that I laid in bed for 16, 18 hours a day, I thought that was all there was to life, was this mediocre, just existence. Now, I was sick at the time. Hopefully you guys aren't like that. Like, we have a reason for being here on this earth. You were made to make an impact, whether that impact is in your family, in your larger community, in your state, in your nation, across the whole entire world. Whatever that community is that you have to make an impact, that's your stage, that's your people, that's what you were called to do. And not just to be like tumbleweeds, like rinse and repeat, get up, go to bed, get up, go to bed. Sadly, I hate to say it this way, but my husband sort of does that because he's in corporate. And I see through the years how he's like, I really want more. I really want more. And because we are in the industries that we're in, we get to. Like, I am so happy that I get to live that different life, that I don't have to feel like I'm just going to just wander through and just die one day. Because I used to say, life is hard and then you die. And I don't believe that anymore. Like so many people say that. I don't believe that at all anymore. We were all put here for some sort of reason. And if you're not passionate about it, if you're not happy every day, get with Bethany so you can get happier. But we were meant to live abundant, joyful, awesome lives. Just like she said earlier, just because somebody else has something or she has something doesn't mean that you've taken out of somebody else's bucket. Abundance is not like that. Now I'm going into my law of attraction, but abundance is not like that. You don't take from somebody else's bucket so you have something. You get to have all of it. And then your friend gets to have all of it. And your neighbor gets to have all of it. And your kids get to have all of it. We all get to have all of it.
Yes. And I love
Totally.
that. I love how you just shared that about like seeing your husband because, and this is my husband also has, I mean, he's not exactly 9 to 5. He's more like 8 to 4 or, whatever, but it's that same concept. And,
Mhm.
he's learned, um, I feel very blessed and fortunate. Um, Again, like because I got to know myself and what I needed, I knew out of my partnership, it was very important to me to have someone who's willing to be on a personal development journey side by
Mhm.
side with me. Now, granted, this is his own process, but it's interesting. We just had our 4-year wedding anniversary, and something that he's brought up a couple times is, you know, he wrote it in our card, and he's a wordsmith, and he gives good card. And it was just a really simple inscription. He was just like, "Thank you for helping me understand so much about myself and about life. And this is because of me living my next level self and continuing to work through the fear. Like
Mhm.
Jacqueline said, she's still dealing with the fear. We're all always dealing with fear, but is
Mhm.
that fear
Yeah.
changing? Is that a new fear, or is it the same one? Because
Mhm.
we have that option. And so witnessing my husband do this in his own life, he still has his job and he's very happy to go to his job because it allows him the freedom to pursue his musical passions outside. He has a schedule that works. He has an income that can, afford
Mhm.
there's how many guitars, right? I think we have like 30 guitars around the house. They're everywhere because it makes him happy, because it
Yeah.
fulfills his purpose. And when he writes songs, and that's
Mhm.
his way of getting his story out into the world. And
Mhm.
so it's like that, my ripple effects, that's how it is just in my little family, which
Mhm.
we're growing. We're 6 months pregnant right now too. So
Yay.
that's very exciting. But it's this process of, like Vicky said, where you start where you are, share your story. You'll get better at it as you'll work through that fear as you share the story. You can
Mhm.
think about sharing your story all you want. Nothing's going to
Mhm.
change, not for
Yeah.
you and not for anybody else. But when
Yeah.
you work through that fear and you can get support on navigating that fear,
Mhm.
that's part of what this free Happier Lives tribe is all about. It's about bringing education and inspiration to the world to help you have the courage to step into your next level self. And a big part of that
Mhm.
is looking at what is your story and who needs to hear it, and then go share it there. So,
Right. Right.
whether that's impacting your marriage, like Vicky said, whether it's in your family or whether it's a broader community or whether it's, the ripple effect as it reaches out to the whole world, which I think every story eventually does. That's my belief personally.
Mhm.
Even if you don't see how it's connected, that it does impact in a big way. So I hope that you guys are taking all of what we're sharing to heart, and really letting it not just be information, not just be the 3 steps of something else on your to-do list or a different way to go try to be, but actually like absorb the energy that we're sharing this with. We genuinely want to see you succeed. We genuinely want you to step into the power of your story. And
Mhm.
really, my headset's like falling out and going wonky. Um, it's really important that to each, both Vicky and I know that how we support our clients is with so much heart, and we genuinely care. And as you take all of that and the 3 steps and allow it to create transformation in your life. Don't just let it be more information about how to do something, but actually let it change how you show up in the world so that you can have more impact and become more confident and have all of that. Like as soon as you start just showing up a little differently, it doesn't have to take a long time. So
Mhm.
that is my wish for each of you that's watching. And Vicky, I so appreciate you being here.
Oh, thank you
Again,
for having
it's
me on.
you can find Vicky Gould if you, we popped her link in there so you can stay in touch with her. I invite you to join us and the Happier Lives Tribe. Stay connected that way. And my name is Bethany Perry, bethperry.com. So I hope, well, I know Vicky and I will stay connected. And I hope that this has been helpful for all of you. Vicky, any
Yeah.
last thoughts or words that you'd like to put out there?
I don't think so. I think we covered it all. Just don't try
Yeah.
to outrun that story because it's going to follow you.
I love it. Well, thank you so much again for being here today. And thank you to
Yeah,
all of
thank you
you
for
who have
having
joined us
me.
live or catching the replay. And we'll talk to you soon. Remember,
All right.
happy is an inside job. So go
Yes.
unfluff yourself so you can become the best version of yourself. We'll talk to you soon. Mwah.
All right. Bye.